Hey there, and welcome to the assembly line, where today we're going to be taking a look at the SPEKTR and just checking out the sculpt and seeing what it's like. Here we have the Mini then. It comes as a 3-part sculpt. I think this is an older sculpt because it doesn't have the square arm sockets, which seem to be commonplace amongst the N3 stuff. Also, this one's a true 25mm, and the most recent stuff I've been checking out from Corvus Belli stands at about 28mm, so there's a bit of scale creep going on in Corvus Belli's range, but nonetheless I don't think that's a problem. 25 to 28 just means you have a variation in height of your people, so some are taller than others, just like in real life. The level of detail and the actual frames of the people are okay to sit together, so I'm just going to go through each piece and find out if there's flash, casting lines, etc. First up the body then, and here we find that the casting is up to Corvus Belli's normal standard. Pretty immaculate really. The only thing is that there is a slight casting line that runs up the back of the leg, up the back, down the front of the chest. But it's ever so faint. I'm not even sure if you'd be able to see it if it's just sort of here. Runs along the back here. Ever so faint. You can't really see it over the helmet, but again you can see it just in under the neck here. And then it runs down the chest. But again it's super faint, very possible to see. As ever, good moulding techniques. They've put the injection point in the bottom of the slaughter base. And again, just looking at the slaughter base, I think this is an old Mini because it doesn't have infinity stamped onto the slot. Or the slaughter piece here. Also, it looks like all of the release points have also somehow been incorporated into this, because I can't find any release points actually on the Mini itself. There's not even, like, normally there's at least 1 or 2 tag ends of the release points, but no. So I don't know whether, I don't know, it seems like almost the older Minis in some respects have a little bit more precision casting going into them somehow. But that wouldn't make much sense. But onwards. Here's the sniper rifle then. This is pretty clean again, but once more there is an ever so slight cast line running down the length of the gun. You can just sort of see it here running along. Other than that, it's got a really nice injection point going straight into the butt of the grip here. That to me is a perfect injection point, because when you cut it away, it will cut away cleanly, easily, it's easy to get to. You're not very likely to bend the barrel of the weapon. Other than that, there's various release points, which is why I was quite, well, I expected to find some release points on the main body, but I couldn't. So there you go, that's pretty immaculate. Finally then we have the upper arm and forearm, which is one piece. The injection point is into this shoulder panel here, which is a curved shoulder panel unfortunately, so a bit of knife work there in order to keep it clean. Other than that, there is no real casting lines to speak of, just a couple of release points. And then I think this is how you tell the older miniatures from the newer miniatures, and that is, there's a ball joint here with a sort of semi-spherical divot in it. And this connects onto the equivalent point on the shoulder where there's the other half of the socket for the sphere, and that has a notch in it which sits inside the divot on this, and that forms the connection. I think this is how you tell old and new Minis apart, because the current range of N3 they use square socket joints. Where the square sits inside a square, it glues much better because you have a solid socket rather than a sort of more delicate socket where everything's just sort of sat together and it's used for alignment purposes. The square socket actually sits one inside the other, so it's a much stronger fit. Also, the square socket has a much larger surface area, so when gluing you have a larger contact area, which creates a much firmer bond. So the newer miniatures are actually much sturdier in terms of when they're glued. So my only problem with this Mini, for me, and it's my own fault, is that he stood on 1 foot, and I'm half tempted to see if I can make him stick him together and then have him lying on his side holding the sniper rifle, taking some kind of funny side shot, but I don't really like the idea of that. So I am going to remove him. This might be really dumb of me. I'm going to mostly remove him. I might drill the base for this guy, so I'm going to leave a very thin sliver of metal so that I can drill a base and feed it through. Or actually no, I'm going to remove him from his base and I'm going to pin his foot, I think. I'll leave a slither or pin his foot. You'll see in a moment once I've cut him off, cut him away from his feet. So I'm just going to go away, clean these up, assemble, and I'll get back to you in a second. And you can see what I've decided to do and how foolhardy I am. Just before I actually finish assembling, I've cleaned the Mini up, and I just wanted to point out that the cast line actually runs diagonally across his mask here, and that was a fairly significant cleanup. And then also this is what I've done. So I've reduced the tab for the base down to just a pin. I've just cut this off, and then used a craft knife to cut away and roughly make it circular so that I can drill into my acrylic bases and stick the pin in, because I'm a bit worried that if I go for just a 1 foot stick onto those acrylic bases, I don't think it'll work, or I think he'll be very precarious. I'm not prepared to risk that. So that is my solution, and I'm just going to finish assembling him and I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. There you have it then, all assembled and ready to go. In terms of painting, because I'm going to rebase him, I've just put a touch of glue on the tip of his toes because I've got the pen. If I put glue on the pen and I glue the pin in place, it would be an absolute nightmare to get him off the base once I've painted him. So I just put a dab of glue on the tip of his toe just to hold him upright and hold him in place. It's not meant to be secure, it's just meant to stop him from moving. In terms of getting the arms in and on, you can see there's ever so slight gapping. That can be avoided in several ways. You can green stuff afterwards, I'm not going to bother. You can put in just more super glue, make sure you use it, but that takes longer for the glue to set because you're then relying on the setting agents in the glue to make it set. Or you can just carefully fit everything beforehand and make sure everything's shaped down to fit. So just flip him around again and hold him. You see there's that gap in between his hand and his comm log there. But it's not so much as to be a problem by the time he's been underpainted, and if that's left basically is a black recess. Just shaded and highlighted and everything, it will all blend and disappear. I really like the pose as well. Actually unrealistic. I'm fairly certain the recoil off a high-powered sniper rifle would, well, possibly knock you down if you stood up on 2 feet, let alone stood up on 1. But it's a very dynamic, cool-looking pose, so I like it anyway. So I hope this has been of some interest to you. Thank you for watching. Have a good one and take care. Bye bye.